Okay, everybody. We're going to discuss a very interesting question. We're going to discuss, can somebody start something and that same person continue it? The person that establishes something, can he also be the one that continues it? There are two powers in the world. There's the power, the creative power, and there's the power of the preservation power. The creation and the preservation, they're two separate powers. Let me give you an example. Somebody told me all the shuls in the neighborhood here, all the synagogues in the neighborhood were started by one person, and then that person was kicked out, and somebody else came in instead of him. None of the shuls over here have the same person that founded it. He's the same person that runs it. And that's because you have these two powers in the world. You have the creative power, the person who comes with the brilliant idea. He comes and he puts it together, and then the preservation power. In building this building complex that we build, there's somebody called the Yazam, the initiator, the guy that goes, that gets he speaks to City Hall, he gets all the papers, and then there's somebody else that comes and he actually pulls forward with the work. It's very rare to see the same person starting and continuing it, because there's the way the world works. When God created the world, the first man was Adam Rishon, right? Adam's the first person. He couldn't have been the person to give us the Torah. He couldn't have been the person, which was Moshe Rabbeinu. He couldn't have been the same person who wrote the Mishnah, which was Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi. Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi that was here to preserve. He was afraid that we would forget, and he wanted to preserve. The preservation power is very different to the creative power. That's very important to understand. And we're going to come into this.
You don't have preservation without creating.
Right. Well, you first have to have something in order to preserve it. For example, the ISTJ, one of the Myers-Briggs personalities, he's very good at preservation. He's good at mathematics. He's good at physics. He's good at computers. He's less good at writing a novel. It's less the creative power. The creative power is more the ENFP. That's more the other power. And we all have both, but some are more powerful than others. Ben Gurion started the state of Israel. He couldn't have been prime minister today, and he couldn't stay in office for too long. He was in for like 4 terms. But at a certain point, you need the change. You need somebody else who can preserve, who can bring a different view. Because the preservation needs different powers. Last week in shul at the Kiddush, one guy said he was at the bus stop and there was a Hasid Gur over there. Do you know how a Hasid Gur looks?
His pants are under the kippah.
Pants are under the kippah. Right? They always wear their jacket, a long jacket.
Your
And
tzitzit is out?
But the tzitzis, you can't see the tzitzis when they close the jacket. They have the round hat. And he asked this Hasid Gur, he said to him, do you think the Rebbe, the Gerer Rebbe, is the person who represents the Baal Shem Tov today? And he said, for sure. He's the representative of the Baal Shem Tov today. Gur is the biggest Hasidus in Israel, and he represents the Baal Shem Tov. And this guy from Shul laughed at him, and he said, you think Baal Shem Tov was so different? Baal Shem Tov is similar to a Karabach type, to a guy who's jolly and happy,
Right.
and sings with the guitar, and does kumbaya around the fire. Oh, you like that. You like that type. Yeah. Yeah, that's rare. That's more your type. That's more the creative energy. It's a different type of energy. And when Hasidus was started, it was started with that creative energy because you have to. You can't have the preserver started. He can't start anything. He can only preserve. And now when we look at Hasidim, they don't look like what the Baal Shem Tov was. Let me tell you a story with the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov was in Shul on Yom Kippur. It was a long davening. And there was a little shepherd, a boy, a Jewish boy who was a shepherd. There were also Jewish shepherds in Ukraine, in Mezhibuzh, like 300 years ago. And he came into the shul, and this little boy didn't know how to read. He didn't know how to daven. He didn't know how to do too much. You know what he did know how to do? How to use his flute. He had a flute. And he heard the davening. Kol nidrei arara v'sovei. And he felt he had to chime in. So he took out, on Yom Kippur, he took out his flute and he chimed in so nicely. And what did people in Shul do? They said, hey, shh, shh, מה זה ההתנהגות הזאת? מה אתה חושב שאתה בשוק? מה, חילול Shabbos, חילול Yom Tov? Oh, they almost threw stones at him. And the Baal Shem Tov turned around and everybody kept quiet. The Baal Shem Tov, like, all he had to do is like pick up his hand, everybody's quiet. They looked at the big rabbi and he said, just know, I was in Shamayim now. My mind was all the way up in Shamayim. I did an Aliyas Neshama. And it was difficult in Shamayim. There were difficult dinim, there were difficult things, and I had to deal with the Satan, with the Satan, with the Sitra Achra. And then this guy comes in with his flute, this beautiful flute, and he just broke through all the Sitra Achra, all these terrible dinim in Shamayim. He broke through. He did something so beautiful for Am Yisrael.
He brought his neshama.
So, would you hear this? Does this sound similar to Hasidus today? Go. I think the biggest minyan in Israel is the Gur Beis Midrash in Yerushalayim. Okay, it's a massive Beis Midrash. We should go there once. It's colossal. There's so many, it's bigger than Bells. Bells is big, that's even bigger. 5,000 people can get in there, and they go in there. They don't have benches or chairs because they can't. And they stand. Actually, it doesn't sound too nice that they're there for hours all stuck together. But that's what it is. And you can go there and you can daven there. And how about you go there with a flute on Yom Kippur and tell me what happens?
Oh.
Yes. So you think of the Baal Shem Tov and you think of Reb Shmuel Alta, the Rebbe of Gur, then Yankov Alta, the Rebbe of Gur, but you're not thinking about it right. That's what the guy in Shul said. That's why he was laughing at this Gur Chassid. But it's wrong to look at it like that. We don't have the Gur in this neighborhood. There's no Gur over here. Somebody from our Shul was laughing at the Gur guy. But it's wrong to do that because the Rabbi Yankov Alta, the Rebbe of Gur, is busy with preservation. He is not creating Hasidus. Really, if we wanted somebody to create Hasidus, we would need a Karlebach, we would need something like that. But that's not his job now. If that was his job, there would be another Rebbe. Okay, that's the way these things work. Now, let's go with this towards the parsha. This parsha is Acharei Mot Kedoshim. It's two together. It's after the death of the sons of Aaron. Aaron a Kohen. When the Mishkan was opened, it's the beginning of the Mishkan. It's exciting. And he has two sons, Nadav Avihu, that say, you know what? We want to bring a Ketores. We're going to bring incense, even though we're not allowed to. You're not allowed to bring incense just stam. You can only do it.
They were just so excited.
It's organized. But they were so excited, they decided to go and to bring the Ketores. You take the incense, you crush it, and then you pour it onto the fire. And then smoke comes up and the smell is unbelievable. And their souls came out of their noses. Very nice. Oh, not so nice. I'm saying nice that you do that. Everybody's soul comes out of their nose. Yeah. The nose is the most spiritual part of the body. It's the one part that doesn't, you don't bring anything in. I can smell my food, but it doesn't go in to the body. It doesn't, it's disconnected from this world in a way. It's halfway between this world and the world to come.
Also your eyes.
That's very good. Why aren't eyes, the eyes go into the memory? That's a good thing. I see a beautiful picture. I see a beautiful picture, right? My eyes are enjoying that, but it's not going in. The nose, the smell is considered the highest one of the five senses, higher than sight. But he's asking why? Why not sight? I don't know. I'm sure there's a good answer. No, I'll have to look that up.
But also the nose. We breathe through our nose also.
Yeah.
The breath connects with the soul also. Okay, these are good questions.
Yeah. I heard a speech that
To
said
see
that
can ruin,
Smell it. Yeah.
but to smell can't ruin it.
Yeah.
Why?
Saying something could ruin your neshama. Saying something bad, something not near.
Seeing something bad can damage my neshama, which means that the eyes are more
you
connected.
can't do Averas with your nose.
You can't do Averas with your nose. That's right. Yeah, there's a lot of things. The eyes are windows to the soul. That's actually not a quote from the rabbis. That's a general quote. But you can see connections in the rabbis. It says that if on Shabbos you have problems with your eyes, you can mechal Shabbos. You can go drive to the hospital and take care of that because the eyes and the heart are connected. That's what it says. So really, there's a question over here. Both are very important senses. The eyes are important. The nose is also important. But I'm not sure why doesn't the soul come out of the nose? Why does the soul come out of the nose and not from the eyes? I don't know. It's a good question.
Because you can't
There's
do
no
any
point.
sins with your nose.
Oh, you can't do sins with your nose. The soul was put in. Very
Through the
good.
nose.
Hashem, when he created Adam Harishon, he blew through his nose. He blew the soul into his body. Yes.
An entrance.
So that's why that's the entrance and not the
And an entrance and an exit. One nostril for this one nostril for that one. Let's move forward over here. So his sons die. Now, I want to bring you to Warsaw 150 years ago or so. We have the Chidushei Harim, the first rabbi of Gur. Chidushei Harim, and he has a son, Rab Yitzchak Mordechai, Rav Avram Mordechai Alta, his son, and he's going to be the next Rebbe. And everybody's excited for the next Rebbe. He had a lot of Rav Avram Mordechai's brothers died at a young age, but he survived. But then, before he even turns 30, he's also nifter. And that's very sad. Everybody knew this is the heir to the throne of Gur, and he passes away. And he has a son, a small 7-year-old son. The son is going to be the Sfas Emes one day. The Sfas Emes, we use the names of the books. It's just much easier to remember that way. Okay, the Sfas Emes is a little 7-year-old boy. His father passes away. His grandfather's the Rebbe. And within a year or two, the grandfather also passes away. And now you have a little boy, and he can't be the Rebbe. The Hasidim don't want to go to a 9-year-old boy to be the Rebbe. So they started dispersing, and they went to different Hasidiyos. And they went a lot to Alexander. Chassid is called Alexander, which is very big. Alexander, what?
What's a place?
Alexander's a place next to Lodz. And we're talking about a time when a lot of people were moving closer to the cities. After the Industrial Revolution, 150 years ago, people are moving from the towns. So all the side, they're moving into cities. You have an urbanization in Poland. All over the world, you have urbanization. And so Alexander's close to Lodz, so a lot of the Hasidim moved to Lodz. And Gur is next to Warsaw, Warsaw, so they moved to Warsaw. But now there is no Gur anymore because the Rebbe passed away. His son passed away before him. Sfas Emes is a little boy. And so for many years, the Hasidim are scattered.
Why can't they take somebody else?
There was nobody who was at the level. It's right. You're right. There was no
That son is gonna be on the level. Like,
there was no natural successor.
Mhm.
A lot of times we have a natural successor. Okay, like the King of England, the Queen of England, the King of England. There's the rules for that, and it's pretty clear the way it is, but a lot of times we don't have rules for it. And then people disperse and they choose different rabbis. And there was the Rebbe of Pilz, who was actually a Talmud of the Gerer Rebbe, and he went to Warsaw when the Sfas Emes was
He was a Talmud.
20.
He was a very
yeah, but not everybody agreed that he should be the successor. And listen to this. How many stories have you heard when somebody passes away and then there's a big fight about who's going to take over, or there's a big confusion about who's going to take over, and then they spread? And you say to yourself, right? We've heard a lot of stories like this. You say to yourself, why didn't he give a
He
clear
don't come to
successor?
fault.
And by kings also, oh, how many times did they fight?
Okay.
Julius Caesar was assassinated, and then you had Mark Antony and Augustus, and they went to war. Augustus won, and he became the king, the Caesar. But why didn't Julius Caesar say who's going to continue? So Julius Caesar, you could say, he was assassinated, he was killed, and so he didn't have time. He was also in his 40s. He wasn't old enough. But a lot of times you have old people, they live to an old age, and then there's a fight over who's going to succeed him. Because you can't really decide that. If we go to the beginning, and I mentioned all the shuls over here, you have one guy who started it, and another guy now is running it. But it's never the same guy. He cannot pick the next guy because he doesn't really know who's best at this.
He could take a guess. He could do an educated guess.
It's a whole different story.
Better than everybody's spreading.
You
I think
cannot
whoever built it, it changes by the people that are there, by the whatever.
delegating power is very, very not simple. And not everybody can delegate power. So you can't always delegate the power. So Chedush Harim, he could have delegated the power, he didn't. And by the way, before then also, you don't really see proper delegation of power. You see the next Rebbe, the most prominent Rebbe, takes over. You don't see the Baal Shem Tov passed away. Who's continuing him?
It's still made it.
His son. His son continued him for a very short amount of time. And then on Shavuos night, he sat there at the Tish and he said, ladies and gentlemen, probably just gentlemen, I don't know what it was like back then. Right? You're talking about the very, very beginning of Chassidus. It's probably similar to this from over here. Probably similar to what he had to do. But he stood in front of everybody. He said that there were probably more people. And he said, I had a dream last night, and my father came to me in my dream, and he said, the next Rebbe should not be me. It should be the Maggid Mezrich. And he took off his big jacket, his cloak that he got from his father, and he went over and he put it over the Maggid Mezrich. He said, you're the next Rebbe.
While he's alive,
The Rosh Shem Tov passed away. He came to him in a dream. He came to his son in a dream. The son was the Rebbe. The son's sitting here, and he says, my father came to me in a dream, and you need to replace me. And he takes it off and he puts it over
he
him.
moves over.
And then he moves over and he says, the Maggid Mezrich takes the seat. And right away he stood up and he started speaking about the Haftarah there, the beginning of Yeshayahu, and about Chashmal. What's Chashmal? Electricity? Chashmal is an angel. It's an angel, yes. So he started speaking about that stuff, deep stuff.
I think it makes sense that the Talmud should continue a rabbi more.
Yes, but who? Which one? Well, who's going to succeed?
It's
It's not so simple. Moshe Rabbeinu went over to Yeshua. He put his hands on top of him, and he said, "You're going to
Yeah,
continue."
Hashem told him to do that.
And right, Hashem told him to do it, and he continued him. Later on, in the time of the Shoftim, it's not that simple. Whoever was charismatic enough, who was a tzaddik enough, who Hashem came to, they continued it. It's not simple to delegate power. And so, back to our story, the Sfas Emes is a 20-year-old businessman. And he's making money. He's living in Warsaw, he's making money, and he's giving a shiur. He's giving a small shiur on Thursday night to a small amount of people. And he's sitting there and he speaks. And the Pilzer Rebbe was in Warsaw, and he went over to hear the shiur of the grandson of the Chedush Harim. He heard it's giving a shiur, very interested. He came and he sat in the back. And the Sfas Emes spoke, and he said, the sons of Aaron HaKohen died when they brought the Ketores. Every mitzvah that you do, your soul wants to leave your body because of the mitzvah, because the mitzvah is so great. The mitzvah wants, you want to go back to God, you want to connect to God. Every mitzvah, every bracha I say, every tefillin I put on, every Shmoneh Esrei, my soul wants to leave my body and go to God. That's the way it is. Our souls are always pulling us up. The soul is like fire. You light fire, fire always goes up, right? Today we went to Big, we saw Mo D, and he showed us a picture of he smoked a cigar and he threw the cigar on the floor, and the cigar landed with the butt down and the smoky side up. And it didn't make sense at all because the smoky side is bigger, right? A cigar looks like this. How does it fall at the bottom of the triangle? And I said, maybe it has to do with the heat. Fire always wants to go up. Let me toss it to check in how that is exactly. But fire always wants to go, your soul wants to go up. When you're doing mitzvahs, it wants to go up more. But there's a mitzvah of the chai bahem. There's a mitzvah of you need to live with the mitzvahs. There's a constant mitzvah. You have to live with the mitzvahs. You have to live with the Torah. And that's what pulls you down. Now, if you do a mitzvah, which is not a mitzvah, which is just something that your soul wants, their soul wants to bring Ketores, then there's nothing pulling them down. There's no v'chai b'hem for something which isn't a mitzvah. And that's why their souls went out of their bodies. That's the explanation of Nadav view. And the Piltzer Rebbe heard this. And he said, oh my gosh, that is brilliant. That is amazing. He needs to be the Rebbe. And he gets the Hasidim together and he says, guys, he's roi, he's worth it. He should be an ex Rebbe. And he makes the Sfas Emes the Rebbe. And the Sfas Emes is
gorgeous Vartor.
From one gorgeous Vartor he knew, but he was also part of the family. He's also a son after son. Right? It wasn't just the Vartor, yeah. That would be actually a very interesting thing if somebody just came with the Vartor and then they said, okay, you need to be the Rebbe. But that one, here he had more behind that. And by the way, the Gerer Rebbes are always rich. And they don't accept pikdonos. You know, when you go to a Rebbe, a lot of times you give him money. You're giving him money. It's a pikdonos. It's like a kapara for your soul. I'm giving the Rebbe 100 shekels, and by that I'm rectifying my soul a little bit. It's like fasting. Like when you fast,
Like a korban?
Like a korban in a way. And then the Rebbe will use it for the mostas. He's not going to use it. He's not going to go out to Greg to eat in a restaurant, right? He's going to use it for something important. And the Gerer Rebbes do not accept pikdonos. You come, 200 shekel note? No, get out of here. They don't accept money because they have the Gerer Rebbe, Reb Yankov Alter, who lives in Yerushalayim. They always lived in Bnei Brak, but he moved to Yerushalayim. He owns a lot of land. He has a lot of how? They know how to invest. The Sfas Emes had a few years where he wasn't the Rebbe, and he knew he had to support himself. If you're the Rebbe, then the Hasidim support you. But he was not a Rebbe. He said, okay, it went on to different rabbis. I'm going to go and do business. And they did business, and he was good at it. Right? The guy that said our Torah like that, if he puts his mind to business, he becomes rich. So it connects very nicely to our parasha, this idea of Acharei Mot Bnei Aaron, and how the Gerer Rebbe's son became, the Gerer Rebbe's grandson became the Sfas Emes. The Sfas Emes will continue for many years as the Rebbe, and his son is the Imrei Emes. Yeah, he has a parish that Zadie likes to read. A parish. Yeah, a parish on the Torah. And his son, the Imrei Emes, becomes the Rav in 1904. And he starts sending his Hasidim to Eretz Yisrael, which is an amazing investment. That's how Gur survived the Holocaust. Because in the Holocaust, Hasidei Alexander were all killed. Hasidei Vorka were all killed. Hasidei Gur in Poland were killed, but the Hasidei Gur in Eretz Yisrael survived. And the Rebbe himself managed to get to Eretz Yisrael during the Holocaust, and that's how it survived. He came here in 1942, 43. He was here till 1948. He was in Yerushalayim. He was right next to Shuk Machne Yehuda. There's a yeshiva there, the Sfas Emes Yeshiva. And when he passed away during the War of Independence in 1948.
78 years.
Yeah, 78 years ago. And what? It's 7. No, he's the third Rebbe of Gur. And he passed away, right? Chidush Harim, Imre, Chidush Harim, Sfas Emes, Imre Emes. Safa, the mouth is 2. The words coming out, the Imre Emes is 3. Then his 3 sons become the Rebbes. And then our Rebbe now is number 7. Right? That's how it works out. Our Rebbe now is, and he's going to get a name. They're going to call him a different name. Now he's Rabbi Yaakov Alta, but he's going to get a different name after he passes away.
Only if you wrote them.
They'll write something. They'll write something because, and they already wrote a lot of things because he speaks. It's enough that he speaks. He says something. He says Divrei Torah. He's the big Talmid Chacham, right? After the Imre Emes, you have, which is the order: the Beis Yisrael, the Lev Simcha, and the Pnei Menachem, and then this guy and the brother from today. And the Sfas Emes said he passed away, and they couldn't bring him to his kever in Har HaZeisim. So what did they do? They buried him there, across from the Shuk, across from Machne Yehuda. When you go to Machne Yehuda, you can cross the street from Machne Yehuda, cross the light rail, and there's a narrow. Go to the closed part of the Shuk, then cross the light rail over there. Then you go down a narrow alleyway on your right. All of a sudden, you're transported into Poland. When I do tours, I say, guys, we're going to Poland. We're in the Shuk, and I say, we're going to Poland. And we go, and you see all the houses are Evan Yerushalmi, like the white stone that we have in Israel. But you get there, and it's all red brick. Poland is red brick. A lot of Poland is red brick. And Gur is all red brick. And so you have red brick, and you have the facade of the yeshiva in Gur. They do it very nicely with the windows and the doorway. It's smaller, but it looks like the front of the yeshiva in Gur. And right over there is buried the Sfas Emes. Sorry, the Imre Emes. See, I keep on messing that up. And I do it with my tourists also sometimes. They get upset. The Imre Emes is buried over there. And who's buried next to him? His third son, the Pnei Menachem. The Pnei Menachem said, I want to be buried I want to be buried here. And in Gur, they say a joke. You're not going to laugh. This is the joke they say. They say one day they might move the Imre Emes because he didn't want to be buried there. He's supposed to be buried in Har HaZeisim. They have a cave over there of Gur. They buried him here in the meantime because they couldn't get there because there were rockets flying over their head. There were shells that were fired from Jordan all the time, so we couldn't go there. But his son, the Pnei Menachem, will never be moved because he said, I want to be buried here.
No, he said he wants to be next to his father.
He said, I want to be buried.
That up.
He wanted to be buried here. The way he said it, he's going to be here. So one day they might move the father, but they'll never move the son. That's and it could be. You know what? Now that I'm saying this, I never thought about this before, but maybe the son wanted to lock the father in there. Because every Rebbe becomes the Rebbe, they ask him, oh, you're the Rebbe, are you going to move the Imre Emes? Because he's not supposed to be there. That once the Rebbe makes the decision, they'll move him. And every Rebbe said, I can't move him. I can't. Even though it's temporary, but I can't move him. The Pnei Menachem took it a step further. He said, I'm locking him in. I'm going to be buried next to him. I can't, no Rebbe is going to move him now that his son, that the Pnei Menachem's buried there. That his son is buried next to him. He locked his father in place. It's genius. I didn't think about that.
Why would he just move both of them?
Why would he do that? Because he felt very strongly about not moving his father, and he didn't want his younger brother or his...
Maybe it's like Achel.
Is it his nephew? The Rebbe today is either his nephew or his son. I think it's actually his son.
I think in Shem, they wanted to be close that people could go down.
Rachel is next to Beit Lechem. Rachel Imenu. Yosef is in Shechem. Okay. So We're approaching the end of the shiur over here.
Why don't people go there?
We spoke about the preserving force and we spoke about the creating force. Each one of us have different things. Couples that are married, one should be the creative force and one the preserver force, and that keeps a good balance. And if you're the preserver force, then your wife should be the more the creative force. Look at the presidents of America. George Washington, that started the United States of America, could not be president later on because he needed a preserver. And like Bush was a good preserver, Biden was a good preserver. Trump is a creator, right? It's the different energy. We all have both energies, and we both need to see what's our dominant energy and invest over there. And also develop the preservation. If you're a creator, the preservation is going to be a challenge for you. But you should also work on your preserving. And we both do this, and we'll be successful. Thank you very much.